Hello viewers, hope you're all doing fine and great, bringing you another interesting and extremely important topic of discussion on the question, is India a federal country or not? Views are divided. Some say India is a federal country, others would say India is a unitary country. The confusion is great as India was tremendously inspired by the working of two leading constitutions of the world, the US Constitution and the Constitution of UK. It was like mixing federal features of USA with unitary features of UK, and the juice that came out of that mixture is in the form of Indian federal system. Now, to remove the confusion once and for all, whether India is a federal country or unitary or any other polity, we will directly refer the Constitution of India, the supreme law of the nation. And remember, this is my fourth video on Indian polity lecture series. Approximately today we have 25 to 30 federal countries that represents 40% of global population. We have more unitary countries, around 165 plus countries are unitary in the world today. So a government can be two types roughly. It can be federal country, it can be unitary country based on one simple criteria, that is the relationship between the central government and the state government. It matters. So it is called federal government if both the center and the states are kept at parallel to the other. While in unitary, the central government exercises overwhelming authority. One beauty about federal country is that there is balance of power between the central government and the state government. In fact, this country discusses about the national importance, national unity, and regional diversities are preserved, promoted, and maintained all the time through a very effective power division, which is the hallmark of any federal country. Now, this system is specially designed to suit and to benefit large populated countries, the size of USA, India, and so on and so forth. So for them, it's a boon for big countries with huge population. It's a dual government back-to-back. Diversities of rules and regulations are possible, which in fact is not possible in unitary form of government. Here it is allowed in federal government. The constitution, the center can have its own constitution. The states can also have their own constitution. In that way, diversities of rules and regulation between the center and the states are possible in federal government. And it is supposed to be more democratic. Why? Because it allows freedom of choice and expression. States are allowed to maintain its own freedom of choice and to have its own rules and regulation. In fact, India that democracy is more pronounced in India because we follow three-tier system by granting Panchayat Raj the very constitutional status to the Panchayat Raj, especially after 73rd constitutional amendment. In fact, the flow of people's participation is such that it goes till the grassroots level in India. People are participated in all the levels of administration, and in fact that's why it's more democratic. Federal countries are more democratic, and it is shared rules and self-rule. Once the rules and responsibilities and powers are divided and shared, it is now the self-rule. The center and state will have self-rule. Now that's about federal countries. Coming to the unitary one, in fact, quite contrasting to the federal government is the unitary. Single government instead of dual set of government. Here we find single government, which is a common set of rules and regulation. We will find unity of that country mostly because of uniformity, and which will project and force greater identity of that nation. And one good thing about one admiring quality about unitary is that quick decision is made possible because of not dividing the governance into layers. It's just one single set of government where decisions are made quickly and then implemented. It is supposed to be more simple also because of less division, and it is less costly and less expensive as compared to the federal government. And here one hallmark of the unitary form of government is that center dominates. Center takes all the key decisions in this sort of country's polity. Even federation can be two types: coming together federation and holding together federation. The first one, the coming together federation, one perfect example is the 13 colonies of America, which were previously under British colonialism. They came forward and created American Federation. These 13 colonies of America have experienced a very strong British rule, and they were against the idea of a strong centralized authority, but at the same time they acknowledged, they understood the value of and the necessity of staying together unified, and that's how American Federation was created by the states. The states made American Federation. The state even created the central government in America. Now coming to India, it's a holding together federation. Because in India, it's the central government which created Indian Federation. Center even created the states. Remember 1940s and 50s, the status of Indian states. They were not powerful like these 13 colonies. We cannot compare. Indian states were non-sovereign. Indian states were not powerful, and so many princely states were there. More than 500 princely states were there. So we can't compare American states, colonies, and Indian states during that time. So states were not even consulted when federation was made by the central government. So center even created the states in context of India. And so sometimes we can call this federation by force. States were made to stay in that federation by force, which was created by the central government. In fact, in the second federal system, center holds on all the states together. It's like holding on together all the states. In fact, not letting go of any states, even though we have experience, we have a lot of history where states have attempted secession from the Union. There are certain states. In fact, center did not let go of any states. No states achieve in that secession attempt. Center did not even let go of Jammu and Kashmir. In fact, all the states were made to stay under the Indian federal system by force many a times. So in context of India, we have a unique evolution of our polity. That is, it is evolved from the British unitary system, which we have functioned for so long, for many years. And then once we got independence, it was converted into federal system. In fact, we can clearly see it's quite visible, the influence of US and the UK Constitution. It's pretty visible in forming of Indian federal system. In fact, what we can sum up is that it can be called as a federation sui generis, federation of a unique kind or federation of its own, or we can call it also Indian Federation is a federation of its kind. Now let's take the big question: is India a federal country or not? To answer this interesting question, let's go to the part 1 of the Indian Constitution. In fact, the first article of the Indian Constitution reveals about the true nature of Indian polity, reveals about India's identity. The first article 1.1 of the Indian Constitution says, India, that is Bharat, shall be a union of states. So according to article 1, as per article 1, India is not a federal country, India is not a unitary country, but what is India? India is a union of states, it says, because India, that is, in fact, even India and Bharat is also mentioned. Maybe not important, but why the name both India and Bharat is mentioned is because in the Constituent Assembly, which was the assembly for debate and brainstorming and discussion and deliberation, a lot of names were suggested. Some have suggested India, Bharat, Hindustan, so on and so forth was suggested. So India, they have accepted India because of international implication, and within India, Bharat was a popular term. So that's why they went for they applied two names, India and also Bharat. Otherwise, it's not important, but necessary to know. So both India is also mentioned and Bharat is also mentioned. But here it reveals about the true nature of Indian polity by saying that India shall be a union of state in not a federal country or a unitary country. Now this union of state is a quasi-federal. As per Casey Ware, he have said that Indian polity is a quasi-federal. Why? Because we find combination of both federal features and unitary principles in Indian federation. The father of the Indian Constitution, the chairman of the drafting committee, Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar, was aware that India was using a special, a unique word, a term, union of states, which no other country have used so far. The framers of the Indian Constitution used union of state over the federation of state. And he also knew that he was anticipating that in future, people will ask as to why the framers used this term. What is union of state? There will be a lot of confusion. So the father, he tried to demolish that confusion by giving two reasons back to back. So we should all the time remember why the framers used union of state over federation, because of these two reasons. The first one is Indian federation is not the result, it's not is mentioned, not the result of an agreement among the states. This is so essential for a typical, for a true federal country. It's essential that the outcome of that agreement, true federation, is an outcome of agreement among states. This is a key feature for federation to come into existence, which was missing in context of India. In fact, states, and I have just mentioned here, you can club this one, states before the formation of federation, Indian states were non-sovereign, again repeating again and again, weak, and federations were created without consulting the constituent states. So in fact, it's not appropriate to use the word federation in context of India, because the key feature, the essential feature is missing. It wasn't the result of agreement among the states. States need to play a bigger role for the federation to come into being. And the second one is the states have no right to secede from the federation. In fact, it's like the center creating the federation for India, center even creating the states for in that federation, in that union of state, and saying like, since we created, center saying to the states like, since we created you, you have to stay under that union of state. You will have no prerogative to come out from that union. You will have to, under any circumstances, states must stay in that union of states, whether you like it or not. So that have sealed the fate for the states. And in fact, we have the 16th constitutional amendment again that have confirmed that, in fact, state has no right to come out from that union of states. Once you are included, you will stay on and on in that union of state. In fact, it's so good to compare Indian federal system with American federal system, because America stands firm as one of the most important federal country in the world. So the Supreme Court of America defines American Federation in the following words. It says, indestructible union composed of indestructible states. Remember, the word indestructible is used twice here. The union is indestructible and the states are also indestructible. It has two compositions. First, the union cannot be destroyed, as no state is allowed to come out from the American Union at its will. In fact, to understand this, we have to go back to 1869, where Texas versus White case was handled successfully by the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court finally pronounced this judgment, saying that unless there is a successful and bloody revolutions, or maybe only through a consent of all the states, that a state can secede from the American federal system. In fact, that is next to impossible. So let's just conclude here that no state is allowed to come out from the American federal system. The union will remain as indestructible. Now the same good thing, the same character is extended to the states also, right? States are also, it is not possible for the federal government, the Washington DC also cannot do resize, or it cannot destroy the states. States are also sovereign, states are also independent and as important as the union. So you cannot unilaterally come and destroy, maybe redraw the map of the United States by forming new states or alteration of the boundaries without the consent of the concerned states. So the views and the concern of the states are highly, highly respected in American federal system. So center cannot do this unilaterally against the wishes of the state, unlike India. So this is America, and they are standing very firm, surviving all the ups and downs of this many years after the introduction of their federal system. When we apply the same lines in context of India, the word indestructible is used just once. Of course, center is sovereign, center cannot be destroyed, it is indestructible, but the states, a concern is that the states can be destroyed. It can be destroyed by the union government. A lot of options are here. Union can admit new states, they can create and form a new states, can rethrow the state's boundary, can change the name, alter the boundaries, increase the size, decrease the size. A lot of options has been served to the central government. And remember, these are wonderful that these are all coming with a simple majority. It's not tough, but it's quite easy that center can do all those by simple majority, 50% plus 1, they can destroy the states. Now, this will not be in a federal country. This will not happen. In America, this thing will never happen. Because they respect their true federal countries, they respect the territory of the states. So the center, no matter how strong the center can be, they cannot unilaterally bring all these changes. But India, because the word federal or federation is never used in the constitution, maybe because of that, and because of the union of states, that union has been given upper hand or a lot of power to resize the states, existing states. And the source of power is Article 2 and 3. We are more concerned with Article 3 because Article 2 is like, that is obvious, India is a sovereign country. So any point of time, India might acquire new territories in future. So we have got a lot of territories like Sikkim, Puducherry, Goa, Daman and Diu, Dadra, Nagar Haveli. These are all many territories we got it from outsiders from after the independence. So whenever we get a new state which was not a part of India, we will use Article 2. But we are more concerned about Article 3 and its frequent usage, because when Article 3 is used, a lot of time states and center will come face-to-face friction. So that's why, in fact, otherwise, this will not happen in federal country. The source of power for states reorganization is Article 3, which is internal arrangement. So in fact, Article 3 is mentioned, the Parliament may by law. In fact, Parliament alone has been given the power to exercise Article 3. It doesn't say Parliament in the state legislature. So only one authority is mentioned by Article 3, and by virtue of Article 3, the Parliament alone can bring those changes, resizing and internal arrangement of the states. So that Parliament has been given, as mentioned, a lot of options. At least 5 options has been given. They can form a new states by separation of territory from any states, or by uniting 2 or more states or parts of state, or by uniting any territory to a part of it. In fact, it's quite boring. In fact, this is one option that the Parliament can do it. Second is increase the area of any state. Parliament can also not just decrease, but they can increase the size of the state, can decrease, they can alter some part of territory, can be given to some other states. They can alter the boundary of any state, alter the name. Also quite interesting that in India a lot of names are changed, from Calcutta to Kolkata, from Bombay to Mumbai, from Chennai, we have got Chennai, from Madras. A lot of those names are frequently changed by union government. In fact, these are coming very easily, simple majority. Now there are only two sort of requisition for that to happen. First of all, the bill for the purpose shall be introduced on the recommendation of the President, on the recommendation of the union government only. The union government should start the bill. I mean that starting has to be done on the recommendation of the President is mentioned, the union government. Next important is that this is mandatory that the bill be referred to the legislature of the state concerned, which is to be affected by that reorganization. That state's opinion has to be to express its views and opinion. This is mandatory. The Parliament has to refer this to the states to express their opinion. That is compulsory application. But here there are 2 things. The views which is coming from the state is not compulsory for the union to accept. That is so interesting. First, the bill has to be introduced on the recommendation of the government, on the recommendation of the president. Second, the bill has to be referred to the legislature of that state's concern, which is to be affected by resizing, which has to be affected by the division, to express the state's concern or state's opinion. Now, if the state says, please don't do it, please don't divide our states into two, but that view is not mandatory for the central government to take into account. We can have the example of creation of Telangana, where a lot of population from Hyderabad, they have refused. They have requested union government not to divide Hyderabad into two, but unmindful of the expression of the views of the state, center just went ahead and created Telangana as a new state. So in fact, one is obligatory that it has to be referred to the state legislature, but what opinion is coming from the state is not obligatory for the state, for the central government, for the parliament to heed that opinion. In India, official status of the state started in November 1, 1956. This is the year where one of the biggest reorganization of the Indian states were happened, because before 1956 Indian states were there were so much complications, and it was confusing because category 1 category status A, B, C, D sort of category of states were mentioned. So it was accepting Fazl Ali Commission. The center discontinued that category of A, B, C, D, and it was all resized. And so starting from November 1st, 1956, the official recognition of Indian states were only 14 during that time, 1956. And today it has become 28 states and 8 union territories. In fact, 14 more were increased. 1956 it was 14, in 2025 it is 28. That means 14 more states were added. So that's how union destroyed the states. See, in fact, Gujarat, after the 14 states in 1956, Gujarat was carved out of Maharashtra as the 15th state of Indian Union. And remember, Nagaland was the next. The second state that was carved out after 1956 is our beautiful state of Nagaland as the 16th state of Indian Union. In fact, Nagaland, many are confused that Nagaland, outsiders, I'm not saying Nagas, but outsiders are confused that Nagaland were also carved out in the year 1976. The year is important for the Northeast because Northeast, this is the biggest resizing internal arrangement of the entire Northeast happened in 1976, where before 1976, there were only 2 states in the entire Northeast. Remember, Assam and Nagaland were the only states before 1972 in the entire Northeast. So in the year 1972, 3 states were created: Meghalaya as the 19th, Tripura as the 20th, and Manipur as the 21st states of Indian Union. And back to back, they also created 2 union territories. Extreme top Arunachal Pradesh and extreme bottom Mizoram, they were adjusted as the union territories. And after this, the very popular name Seven Sisters came into being in the year 1976 after creating this 3 states and 2 union territories, joining with the 2 existing Assam and Nagaland. Altogether, 7 Sisters were pronounced in the year 1972. So this is how the states, as mentioned, can be destroyed. The state can be carved out from this existing one. And so we can see the picture. 1st November 1956, there were already 14 states and 6 union territories only, which was very recent. 6 September 2025, we have already 28 states and 8 union territories. So this is kind of testimony that the entire union will remain. The territorial integrity of the union will remain, but what is composed of that union? The states can be destroyed in Indian federal system. Quite interesting. So with that, I come to an end of today's lecture series, hoping to see you again next time. So thank you so much.